So, Brad, it's the National Cartoonist Society Reuben Weekend, and as every longtime listener of the show knows, I owe Brad a bunch of drinks. Why was that, Brad? Why did I owe you a bunch of drinks?
When you were promoting your Kickstarter, we set up a special referral tag for your Kickstarter.
The link.
So you
That's
could
right,
track.
special link, yeah.
That's right. And you could track everybody that I sent over to your Kickstarter. And you said on the show, just off the top of your head, for every person you send over, then I'll buy you a whiskey at the NCS conference. Never expecting that I was going to take you up on the offer. But of course, I jumped right on that and I said, you're on. You can buy me a scotch for every person I send over.
Didn't you send over something like 14, 15 people or something ridiculous? And I was like, oh no, what have I done?
Well, I think what happened was our ComicLab listeners got along, got in on the gag. And because I know at least one or two of them canceled their
pledge. Those sons of bitches. They canceled their original pledge and then they used your link.
Yes.
So anyway, we're at the NCS Reuben Weekend. And I go, all right, time to get Brad Geiger some drinks. And you were talking to Hillary Price. I don't know who you're talking to.
Bunny Holist's daughter.
You were talking about? Okay,
I was going to get in line, and then I start talking to Bunny Ho's daughter. She loved the live show. Had really nice things to say. So of course I stood there and let her say them. And
so I jump ahead and go get drink because it's a drink ticket system. You know, like you kind of like what you do like a church group or something. It's a drink ticket system. And so I go up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get 2 drink tickets for Brad. And Brad had been drinking scotch all weekend, so I go, all right, there's like tiers of tickets, kind of like the old Disneyland ticketing system, where you can get scotch for the most expensive price, or you can get wine for the less expensive price, or you can get soda for the least expensive price.
Yeah.
So I'm like, 2 of the most expensive tickets, please. And I come back and I hand them to Brad. But you were talking, so I just kind of handed them to you, and I walk away to start talking to D Fish, right?
Yeah. And you very sweetly say, I got you a couple of drink tickets. These are on me. And I said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And immediately clutched them and went running for the bar.
Right.
And I went over there and I asked the guy for a whiskey sour because I'm like, that'll taste really good. And he said, oh, sorry, Chief, we don't have any sour mix, which, by the way, honest to God, how can you have an open bar without sour mix?
By the way, did that guy seem like he was out of East Coast 101, that bartender? Yes. I don't know what mob movie he walked out of, but God, that bartender was like, what do you need, Chief? All right, we got the drink for you here.
Later on, well, I'll come around to that later, but yeah, he was a character. Anyway, so of course I'm immediately flap sweat because if any of you deal with any amount of anxiety, you know that I've been practicing. I would like a whiskey sour over and over in my head, waiting to get up and it's my turn.
A natural thing among cartoonists,
And then he goes, we don't got that, Chief. And immediately I feel like I'm holding up the line for hours and I go, in that case, give me a red wine. Because it's just, I'm like, fine, I'll have a red wine.
So here's where things went south. As you do, Brad and I re-find each other sort of in a group of 200, 300 people in the cocktail hour.
Yeah.
And I look down at what he's drinking and I go, oh no, you got wine? And you go, yeah, why? And I go, I paid for the expensive drink. And you go, oh no. And I go, I just specifically knew you were going to be drinking scotch all weekend, so I paid for the expensive drink. You got to go back up and say, oh no, I got wine by accident. And you go, I'm halfway through my wine. Yeah. And I go, oh no, Brad, I was so mad about it.
Meanwhile,
and right then,
Danish Mohideen comes up and he immediately catches on to what's going on and wingmans with Dave, and he says, oh, wait a minute. He goes, you got a red wine with the liquor ticket? And I go, yeah, listen, Danish, I didn't know that there were different tickets. I haven't even gotten up there to look at it yet. I didn't know there was different. I thought it was all the same ticket. I thought it was the same deal, and I just said if I can't get a whiskey sour...
Meanwhile, I'm stamping and stomping because I'm so mad that Brad used the expensive drink ticket.
Dave is doing this whole bit. Yeah, Dave's like, well, my kids don't need to eat tomorrow. I can buy liquor tickets all night long. I heard the words liquor ticket so many times that night. And Danish is like, well, Lee says, don't do it now. But later on, after you've had the rest of that red wine, go up and look what the actual prices are and see what he paid for that red wine, you're going to want another red wine. It's just, oh my gosh. And so I've got the both of them sitting there just going on and on about these liquor tickets. And I'm like, I didn't know there was a difference. I didn't. So now.
And meanwhile, the joke is becoming like, it's okay, Brad. I didn't need to pay my mortgage this month. It's fine. I'm glad you're enjoying your red wine with your liquor ticket.
With the liquor ticket.
And then, later on at the night, I'm like, oh, Brad, the menu. We've got to get a photo of you with the menu. And so Brad holds up the menu, not looking at the price list, as a friend does. He's holding up, and he's game for the photo.
I have no idea what I'm holding in my hand. He just hands me a frame, and I'm looking at the back of it. So I'm like, okay. I figured it was a photo of Mel Lazarus or something. Who knows? I'm holding this up, smiling very nicely, and get my picture taken.
And then flips it around and goes, you son of a bitch. Because for 3 hours, I've been hammering and hawing about this damn liquor ticket, that it was way more expensive than the wine ticket. Yeah. And Brad, what was the price difference of the liquor ticket versus the wine ticket?
The difference of $1. It was a $1 difference. And I swear to God, if Donish I might have sussed you out. But Donish wingmaned you so good. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe people actually do this in this day and age. And it was amazing. Here it comes out, it's $1 difference.
So on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of ComicLab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the author of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm his friend Dave Kellett, the cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of the comics documentary Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. And this week's episode is a very special live ComicLab report recorded at the huge and gorgeous Boston Public Library Rab Hall. My God, that place was gorgeous. And the perfect place for a presentation. This was recorded on the first day of the NCS Rubin Weekend, which is the big award weekend that happened in Boston in August 2025. Yeah. Bradley, any other precursors that we want to say before we launch into the recording?
You're going to hear a pristine recording. This was we've always had pretty good luck with the tech support, the AV crew.
Yes. Yeah.
The AV crew at Boston Public Library was amazing.
They were amazing. However, Brad, okay, so they were either graduate students or just had gotten out of school. I mean, it's Boston, so there's 17 colleges around. So I assumed that they were college students. But they knew their stuff when it came to audio tech. They fixed all the problems that we were creating, and then they made things even better. But then, Brad, did you notice some sparks between the two audio engineers?
I was feeling like a little bit, I wanted to be like a matchmaker. I turned into a little old man where I was like, do you guys know each other? Here, I'll stand over here so you guys can stand a little closer. I was trying to kind of, help that budding relationship along.
Yes. I wanted to be like the old sweet Jewish grandmother. It's like, so have you guys met? Have you gone out to lunch together? Because they were so clearly sparking for each other, and the body language was there. I don't think they've smooched yet, but God, I wanted that for them.
Very soon. If you're listening, let us know when you guys finally smooch. That we want to know when it happens and whether we were helpful in that whole thing.
I want to be invited to the wedding because I think I played a part in it. Anyway, so this live recording featured three wonderful cartoonists, Cassidy Wasserman, Jason Chatfield, Sean Wong, who we love to no end. They were all delightful.
And Sean was nominated for an NCS award.
And Cassidy and Sean, it was their first ever Rubin weekend. So really, it was a damn delight.
Yeah. So what a phenomenal time. They all got up there and were you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. They were great. Cassidy was talking about her debut graphic novel, On Guard, from Random House. Sean was talking about his comic, Runners, which we're both very big fans of.
Big fans of it. Jason, of course, the cartoonist behind New York Cartoons and his fantastic process, both of them on Substack. You can look for Jason Chatfield on Substack. And so I think without further ado, let's jump right in.
Nice. This is going to be fun. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you, everybody.
Really great group.
So before we get started, we'll do a quick introduction. My name is Dave Kellett. I'm from Los Angeles.
I'm Brad Geiger. I'm from Philadelphia. And we do a podcast called ComicLab. And as a matter of fact, if you check your digital devices, we just posted our 400th episode today.
So, pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But before we get started on the panel, we've got a great group of 3 panelists that we're going to bring out. But we thought it would be fun if it is your first time Reuben weekend, if you could stand up so that the NCS could welcome you. If you want to stand up if it's your first time Reuben weekend.
Cats.
Wow!
All right.
That is fantastic.
Wonderful. That's
great.
Well, you don't know what you're in for. We we do kind of we try to really bring a lot of talk on this show about not only comics but the business of comics, how you're making a career happen. We try to drill down deep on that, and we try to do it by having as much fun as we can. We've so much had a lot of fun here in Boston.
I know, it's funny, this is the only library I've ever walked in where there's a licensed bar as you walk through.
Yeah.
That is the most Boston thing I've ever heard. Like, oh, I gotta go get a book, but I need a cider. So let's get a licensed bar in the library. It's the most Boston thing ever. I love it. So thank you to the Boston Library for hosting. This was delightful. This is a great space. Thank you all for coming out. Brad, do you want to get us started on our first guest for today? I'll get us started on our first guest today. Cassidy Wasserman, coming in from Maine. If you want to join us on stage, give a welcome to Cassidy. Thank you. I should mention before anything else that this is Cassidy's first Reuben weekend as well, so give her a warm welcome for that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Cassidy lives in the woods of Maine. She does comics classes for kids at her local library, but the most important and exciting thing that I own myself, her debut graphic novel, On Guard, from Random House, just came out in June 2025. It looks fantastic. I love it. It is a gorgeous book. And some more about Cassidy. She participated in 2 successful Kickstarters. She does freelance work on the side and a new webcomic coming soon. But as a primer question so the audience can get to know you, how did you come to fall into comics? What brought you into comics?
So I grew up on the early 2000s internet, which is full of webcomics, as we all know, especially DeviantArt. And so that just kind of drug me into comics. I read Plume by Kaylin Smith, met her at Comic-Con. She was the nicest person ever, and that sold me on comics. The rest is history.
That's fantastic. And so for you, did you always have in your mind from that point on that you wanted to be a cartoonist, or was it like a slowly burgeoning?
That was absolutely what I wanted to do. I definitely was like, okay, I'm going to be a cartoonist. We read Mouse in school by Art Spiegelman. And I was like, oh my God, you can do this. Like, it's not just on the internet. And yeah, I went to school for it. I went to school for illustration, dabbled in kids' books for a while, and now I'm officially a graphic novelist.
Fantastic.
Nice.
So but we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it, but can you give the audience a quick pitch of On Guard? Because it's such a delightful idea. It's such a beautiful book. It's so well executed. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so I always say it's friends, family, and fencing. It's about a middle schooler named Grace, and her parents have recently gotten divorced. She has a rocky relationship with her mother, and her best friend since kindergarten just dropped her as a friend. So things are not looking great for Grace. And so she starts looking for somewhere to go, and she finds the fencing club at her school and learns how to fence, and learns a little bit about herself along the way.
Nice. Fantastic. So our next panelist.
As we gather our Avengers.
As I was going to say victim. Our next panelist is Sean Wong.
Sean. Thank you for being here. And it should be noted, it's also Sean's first Reuben weekend, so give it up for that.
That's right. Sean's the writer-artist of Runners, which is a sci-fi action comedy about alien smugglers.
It is fantastic.
Yes, it's a favorite. Worked on The Tick and Meltdown for Image Comics. Also has credits under Lego and Scholastic. But more importantly for today, he's been involved in 2 successful Kickstarters as well as one that launches tomorrow. Tell us about
Launched
that.
a couple days ago.
Okay.
And as of about 5 minutes ago, it was about $30 away from meeting its goal.
Nice.
So if everyone pledges $1 right now.
He's in the green. So for you, when did cartooning enter your radar? Were you a young kid with the newspaper spread out in front of you? Were you a
Basically, yeah, it was funny listening to Cassidy's story about growing up in the 2000s on the online comics. I grew up in the 80s with the spinner racks from 7-Eleven. I grew up with comics that way.
Yeah.
So basically like early Marvel stuff, Avengers, X-Men, all those kind of team books. So.
And then when in your professional life did you buckle down and be like, I'm really going to go for it?
It was actually about my 3rd year at MIT, which is right across the river. I was there studying architecture. And then realized I had 0 passion for architecture. And
always a good sign.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
That's always good.
So I was always drawing comics anyway, so I realized this was around the time of like Jim Lee and all those guys. That's like, oh, people can make money drawing comics. I don't think that happens now, but around that time I decided to kind of pivot and just see about going into comics instead of architecture.
Yeah.
Well, I will say one thing real quick about runners before we bring up our 3rd guest. That architecture skills, we were talking about this before the show. In his sci-fi book, Runners, which is delightful, it mixes humor, action, sci-fi, expansive story. But your use of establishing shots, the architectural drawings,
Yes.
embedded within the more iconic, fun, joy-filled characters. It's such a wonderful marriage in that book. So,
Oh, thank you.
so just a compliment for a compliment's sake is what that is.
I'll take it.
And then I'll bring up our 3rd guest onto the panel today. You might know him, Jason Chatfield. Thank you, my friend.
Hello.
A quick handshake of friendship. Look at that. Look at that.
Hey, Johnny.
Jason has been a freelance cartoonist for over 20 years. You know him probably most likely from The New Yorker. He's working in The New Yorker. He's passionate about helping creators build sustainable careers through their art using platforms that encourage direct relationships, and we're absolutely going to be talking about that today.
Yeah.
But Jason, I think in the past we've talked about how you came to love comics, but give us a glimpse of what that childhood was that made you love cartooning.
It was listening to the ComicLab podcast.
Oh, that's right. Come on now, come on.
Enough brown nosing.
That's a crisp 20 for you. There we go.
No, I grew up in a very small town, well, a city called Perth. It's a town parading as a city. And there wasn't much to do there. And there was one job in town for cartoonists. It was the political cartoonist. So I wanted to be a political cartoonist because I just saw that and I thought, that's what I want to do. And I just got obsessed with that idea. And then when I left school, I didn't go to college. I started working at a local newspaper and just became a cartoonist, and then went into doing a syndicated comic strip and New Yorker cartoons and all that sort of stuff. I have the same incurable disease as everybody in this audience, and that is being a cartoonist from birth.
So when we first pitched this idea to the NCS, we asked them to put the word out. What questions would you have? What are the topics you want to talk about? The first topic that we're talking about today is the least surprising of all the questions we've got. Because it's what everybody is asking themselves. What's working? So what's working in your comics business? How are you making money happen? What's working business-wise? And if you care to go into it, what's not working? What are some things that you've done that it was a swing and a miss? Cassidy, we're going to start with you. What's working?
Yeah, so what's working for me, we kind of mentioned it, is I do a lot of classes and workshops for kids and teens, and I've found that has been a pretty good business model. People want
Nice.
Professionals to teach their children, and the children are very excited about it. I recently did a zine class with some kids, and that was really fun. Taught them how to make mini comics, and now they live in a library, so they get to say that they have a comic in a library.
Nice. That's such a great idea.
Yeah, that's great. And so you're also working on the sequel, am I right?
Yes.
With On Guard? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I was given a 2-book deal, which is
Heck yeah.
so cool. Oh my gosh. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So So the first one recently just came out in June, and now we're working on the second one to see what we're going to do with Grace, so you can follow along her story.
And so for the benefit of the audience in terms of what's working, for those two, that's going through an agent, with an agent, all that sort of thing,
Yes,
right?
that's all literary agent stuff. I got my book deal through a literary agent. I've talked to a lot of cartoonists. I've heard a lot of different paths to getting a lit agent. It's very helpful if you want to go for traditional publishing, yeah.
Yeah, and I should actually just mention the one thing that we're going to try to promote on this stage that Brad and I talk about on the podcast all the time is that there are many paths up the mountain. There's no one way to do this. There's no golden path that works for everyone. And one of the things we try to advocate all the time is just get as many legs under the table as you can, because invariably over a 6 to 18 month period, one of those legs will be removed by technology, removed by a new company, removed by a new way of doing business. And so the more legs you get under that table, the better off you are.
This has happened to me. One of my legs was I work in video games. And that's how I've kind of transformed my cartooning career into working for video games. And I recently got laid off. If you know anything about the video game industry, it's imploding in slow motion. And I am its latest victim. But that leg is gone, but I still have my cartooning business. I still have my book. I still have my workshops. And so I'm okay. I'm fine.
Right, but the importance of having those other legs ready to go to supplement and take
absolutely.
over. Yeah. So we'll open it up to the two of you. What's working? What's not working? What do you find is inspiring or sparking for you in your own business with cartooning right now? Either one of you can jump in. Sean, if you want to jump in.
I think for me, it's just, like you said, having a lot of things going on. Like I do have my freelance work so that when things slow down with certain things, I have that to pick it up. And then when I have a break with that, then I have more time to do my own series runners. And also just exploring a lot of the different platforms and being visible on all of those between like Kickstarter, Patreon, social media, all that.
Yeah.
Right.
And Jason, what's working?
What's working for me is directly communicating with my readers instead of using a conduit.
Yeah.
I come from a more traditional background. What's not working is syndicated newspaper comic strips, unfortunately, and editorial cartoons. That was my income for 20 years. And unfortunately, it just dried up pretty precipitously, and I had to figure out more legs to get under the table. And I agree. I think that's great advice. I always tell any young upcoming cartoonist, just try as many things as you can, because if one starts to flag, the other one will start to, And so I've been using Substack. And I did not think initially that it would be as effective as it is, but I've noticed as the past 5 years have sort of progressed, it's exponentially got better and better at giving me an opportunity to just sort of directly speak to my readers without having to worry about an editor or a newspaper or a magazine or anything like that.
Yeah.
Now because I follow you on Substack, and one of the things that you do is live stream. You do a live stream on Substack where you bring somebody else in, and the two of you will talk and draw at the same time. Now, you've got a background in stand-up comedy. You're a bit of a performer. If somebody listening out there wanted to try something like that, but they felt like they're uncomfortable drawing when people are looking at them, what would you say to that person?
I actually didn't want to do streaming at all. I was terrified of it. I've never done it. I've never done Instagram Live, Facebook Live, YouTube. I've never done any live streaming before. And it was Substack who suggested it. They were like, you have this thing where you can draw live, because they used to invite me to the Substack events to live draw people. And they were like, why don't you just stream this on your Substack? I was like, that's a terrible idea. No one wants to watch that. And they were like, we beg to differ. And so I thought, what's something that no one else is doing? And everyone does like an AMA, like an Ask Me Anything. So I was like, well, no one wants to stare at my face while I'm answering questions. Maybe DMA, Draw Me Anything. And then I thought, well, what's the thing that I can do without thinking too much about it? And it's what you guys are doing, is just talking shop with other cartoonists and creators and writers and comedians. Because my favorite thing to do in the world is just talk shop. And so I started doing live streams where I would bring on, a lot of my favorite cartoonists and people, and flipping the camera and just drawing together while we talk about things. And even if the conversation isn't that interesting, the drawings are usually pretty good, and vice versa. If the drawings are pretty crap, sometimes we say something good. And that seems to have really taken, I mean, that's probably the most highest, I don't know what, ROI thing I've done so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before I jump into the next question, one thought that I wanted to throw out is that even though certain business models that we've all grown up with or are familiar with are breaking or broken, would you all agree that there's still a huge appetite for what we do? The basic idea of cartooning, that even though the models are breaking, that the cartooning audiences are still thirsty. I mean, anyone want to chime in on that before we move on to the next topic? Yeah, Cassie.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who works in the middle grade space, like those Dog Man, Babysitters Club, like they got kids clamoring. The next generation is already excited for cartooning. So, yeah.
I love, by the way, the ring going off in the audience, because someone's definitely getting a UPS package. It's really, that UPS is really desperate to deliver that package. Okay, so I got a question that'll follow up for Jason. So this is specifically for the Patreon Substack world, but might also a little bit trickle into the Kickstarter world. What do you suggest a cartoonist does when their subscribers, their patrons, their backers might start to stagnate a little bit? Like the numbers are either holding or dropping or precipitously dropping. Any recommendations on that, Pat?
Well, I've never done a Patreon and I've never done a Kickstarter, but I can speak to the Substack part of it, and there is a plateau. There is this strange kind of, it looks like a stock. If you look at this, if the subscribers and the paid thing, it's not a straight line. It's this strange kind of up, and then everyone unsubscribes, and for some reason you get a bunch, and then you're trying to find a correlation. What did I do right? What happened there? How did I get that many people? But in the aggregate, it kind of, for the most part, it goes up. But when it does start to plateau, I notice that when and I want to sort of increase paid subscribers, I notice that when I just speak to people frankly and very, very real, I don't sugarcoat anything, I don't pretend to be anything other than, what I am. When I'm honest and I say, hey, listen, this is all I do now. I am a cartoonist. This is all I've ever done. I write jokes and cartoons for a living. So, even a dollar a week is literally $1 a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes just saying that can remind them, this guy's busting his chops every week, putting out stuff every few days. Throw him a couple of bucks. It does help to actually ask people. I was very I didn't turn on paid until 3 years in. I was so sheepish about asking people for money. I had real hang-ups about it. And then another Substacker told me to turn it on, and she subscribed, and I was like, well, now I'm obligated to do something.
Yeah.
So now I'm doing it out of guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned those statistics. Doing any kind of crowdfunding, whether it's subscriptions on Substack or Kickstarter, turns you into a very superstitious person. If my numbers go up and I'm wearing blue underwear, you better believe I'm going to start wearing blue underwear more often. Trust me.
I can confirm that we are.
Say, well, we're sharing a hotel room, all too well. But there's a lot of us can talk about this, but there's one of us who's in the thick of it right now. There's something on Kickstarter called the bathtub curve, where you make a lot of your money on the first few days, like first 2 or 3 days, and you make a lot of your money on the last couple of days because people are trying to get in before it shuts down. Right. In the middle, it's flat. And we're talking to a person that's probably within 24 hours of that. And we know you get, it does a number between your ears. It's tough. Sean, how do you deal with the Kickstarter the bathtub curve?
It's definitely a psychological thing that you just have to accept.
Yeah.
Because you always want to be constantly growing the entire time, and it is growing, but it's not growing at this rate, it's growing at this rate.
Right.
So that plateau is always going to happen, which is also why in the early days you would hear about people who would do a 2-month campaign thinking I'll get twice the number of pledges, and they just found that they had twice the length of the plateau.
Yes.
Which is actually worse, because then after 2 months, all those people who were going to back it towards the end have forgotten about it. So you definitely don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, Cassidy, how do you deal with plateaus when it comes to subscriptions and crowdfunding and stuff like that?
I mean, so it's been a while since I did my Kickstarters, but at the time I had a pretty good TikTok following. So it was a lot of promoting on TikTok and going live. And so I do a lot of promotion. That's usually my go-to.
Can I ask you a follow-up on that? Because I'm actually not in the world of TikTok. How does cartooning promote in the world of TikTok? This is a very naive question. I literally don't know.
Oh, man. Well, a lot of it is just being chronically online and knowing what trends are happening right now on TikTok.
Okay, yeah.
TikTok is a fleeting platform, so you really have to jump on a trend and get it while it's hot. So if you can jump on it,
Jason, are you on TikTok or YouTube?
I can't stand TikTok. I'd say why. I've never been bullish on social media because I always felt like renting property on someone else's lawn.
Yes.
It never felt right to me. The good thing I like about newsletters, when I've always had like a MailChimp, was that I could take those emails wherever I wanted. I could take them to like any other platform. You can do that with Substack too. You can export all of your followers if you want to go somewhere else. The problem I had with TikTok, apart from the CCP, was the fact that it was so ephemeral. It did feel like as soon as you caught a trend, you had the danger of like audience capture, where you're like, oh, they seem to like this. I'm just going to double down on that. And then you start you notice yourself slipping away from the authentic thing that you actually want to do, and you start doing the thing that they want you to do, and you start, I don't know. That's my experience and some other creators' experience of it, and so I'm not even on TikTok.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that thought, though, I think all of us would agree, though, that oddly enough, the more authentic you are to yourself online and the more specific the voice that you want to speak to, whereas maybe in the 60s or 70s you were being asked to communicate to a mass market that might not have wanted that more niche voice, it oddly works in the modern age in cartooning. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the thing that got me a lot of TikTok followers, and it's not a lot, but was just I was messing around with art supplies that I hadn't used before. I was using Posca pens for the first time, and I looked stupid because I didn't know what I was doing. And then people would give me suggestions, and I would make another video and,
Lovely. Yeah, that's
and
great.
try their suggestions, and that seemed to work. People liked seeing me be silly.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask a follow-up question to Sean on specifically on Patreon. And so, for those of you not familiar with Patreon, it's a subscriber base where our artists go out to a distributed platform and say, "Hey, for X number of dollars, you can jump in and support the comics and continue to support it on a regular and ongoing basis." And many artists will do little extras, little zhuzh, little amuse-bouche that they can put on the top of it to say, like, "Here's what you get as a thank you for supporting it." And so, this question comes in from the NCS that says, what's the best way to use Patreon without burning out on those perhaps complex rewards? How do you keep it simple and doable?
I think for me, when I started my Patreon, I was very clear that I did not want to create a lot of extra work for myself because, as everyone I'm sure understands, the comic itself is plenty of work to keep you busy.
Absolutely.
So I didn't want to do a lot of extra rewards. I do have one higher tier reward where once a year I'll do like a tone paper commission for people, but I don't have that many backers of that, which is how I like it. And the tone paper stuff is just something I like to do for fun, and then it's something I can post, so I'm still getting something out of that as well. But as far as the main rewards, I'm basically posting a lot of the stuff that I'm already creating for the comic itself. Like when you're doing the comic, you do the pencil stage, then you do the inks, you do the colors, and you do the letters. So for me, what I'll do is, and this is good for people who especially are interested in knowing the process or seeing how the sausage is made, I'll do posts where you get to see for every single page, the pencil stage, the ink stage, the colors, and basically the colored page without the lettering on it, and then the final page. So basically, that's all work I've already done. There's no extra work in uploading that, except some slight formatting.
Yeah, and kind of surprise, surprise, people that love comics love to see how comics are made. You know, like if any one of us in the room could see Sergio drawing right now, we'd be like, yes, I will absolutely watch Sergio draw. You know, so yes, I co-sign that one completely.
That's something I was really surprised to find out is how much my audience loved seeing sketches, unfinished work, seeing stuff like that. They really loved that. In other words, I was trying to come up with all of these things to do special for Patreon, and what was special to them was seeing me work. seeing the unfinished stuff that I thought was ugly and horrible, they loved. They wanted more of it. Give us more of the ugly stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Because what you got, and if any of you who are caricature artists, or any of you who have ever drawn in public and found yourself drawing a crowd even though you weren't exactly advertising for one, what we do is magic to normal people. Right? When we can take a page and put something there that somebody wants to interact with, that's magic. And you'll find your Patreon backers really crowd to that. Jason, have you found similar things on Substack?
Yeah, I started a Substack called Process Junkie, and it's exactly that. It was the back end. So New York Cartoons is my main Substack, and I started a second one called Process Junkie, which is how I'm making the stuff on New York Cartoons. And I like you, you forget that not everyone can do what we do, and that it looks like a magic trick to a lot of people. And so I was just kind of showing the behind the scenes, the pencils and the inks and the tools I was using and the creative process, and people were just so excited by it. And I got a lot of people following for that. I've since merged that with they're all under one umbrella now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was something that, again, it was write what you know. Like, that's all I talk about. I talk shop, I talk tools, process. So I'm like, well, just, write what you know. And it's fascinating. If you give people the back end, you don't have to create extra content. Just share what you're already making.
Yeah.
It's true, because what's funny about that is that, you said people think that it's magic. And what's funny I have found is that the adults that love that process, like on Process Junkie, they're the same 8-year-old that fell in love with comics. It's just now that they're a regional vice president for Coca-Cola, and what's great is, I have a guy in Switzerland that has spent, no joke, probably about $10,000 of original art over the course of my career, right? I don't remember what the company is, but he loves comics. He loves the physical act of drawing, can't do it, wishes he could do it. And so by giving him access to how we make the sausage, it's really an exciting part. I mean, Sean, have you seen that with people watching your process come to life?
Yeah, I was going to actually get along the idea of showing them sketches. For me, in my particular case, with me doing a sci-fi book, a lot of my time is spent designing the alien characters.
Yeah.
Trying to make them look visually interesting and while emotive, expressive, and then the costume design and all of that, and the world and props and all that. So one of the main things I offer on my Patreon are the concept sketches for all of these characters, and along with a lot of my creator commentary, why I went this way, what I was trying to do with this character. And sometimes different color tests for different aliens, and that way I can get people to actually engage and say, oh, I like the pink color better than the orange one, and I might not go with that, but it's a way of getting interact.
Yeah.
But they love the kind of sketchbook stuff.
Absolutely. Now, Cassidy, this also comes into play with Kickstarter rewards as well. What are your thoughts on that? Have you got a good system for keeping Kickstarter rewards doable?
Yeah, so something that we did for our Kickstarter, and something that I recommend to everybody because I know a lot of people who like it, is if you have them, the Photoshop files or the files of your pages or your artwork.
Oh, interesting.
Which maybe not to everybody is appealing, but to other artists and other cartoonists, to pick apart your file is my favorite thing.
To be honest, if I could get a Jim Lee file and see how he builds this, yes, I can see the advantage to that.
Yeah, it also makes you neater when you're when when I know I'm gonna be giving out a file for a reward for a Kickstarter back, or maybe even a Substack reward. That's where I'm going. I'm gonna make sure my layers are named.
I never would have thought of that. That's brilliant.
I see it. I never took it seriously until now. I got to take it seriously because Cassidy's talking about it.
Can I be? I want to take a second to just note that one of the things that I love about cartooning right now is that it's not a zero-sum game, in the sense that for me to succeed, Jason or Cassidy has to fail, or for Sean to succeed, Brad has to fail, because there's only one spot in this magazine or this newspaper. And so what I have found over the course of my 25 years working online is that the more we share and the more we promote and help one another, it actually lifts all boats on that tide. It's a great, and I recommend that for every cartoonist in the room.
Absolutely.
Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on ComicLab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
So, another question what we've got that I'm going to shoot over to the gang here is print on demand. Print on demand, best sites, how best to monetize, and merchandising strategies. Sean, we're going to start off with you. What are your thoughts on print on demand?
I actually haven't used print on demand yet, but I've been thinking a lot about it. And this ties back into the Kickstarter again that I'm running right now. I always feel super guilty whenever I get an international backer just because of how high the shipping rate is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Terrible shipping a book to them where the shipping is going to be $45 for like $20 worth of book. But one of the things I've wanted to look into is print on demand for maybe like getting books physically printed here, but then looking into print on demand for the EU so that people there could maybe order a book that way and have much cheaper shipping and not have me having to ship a physical book over.
Can I tell you, as someone who just stopped shipping internationally because of that guilt, I just couldn't stomach shipping to Australia for $50, and I was like, I can't do this to you. So I stopped doing it. But that's an intriguing idea. I had not thought about that. Because I personally don't use print on demand for reasons we can talk about. But before I do talk about it, do either of you use print on demand? Jason, Cassidy, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I use Printful. I had a Shopify store for like 10 years, and my aforementioned sheepishness about asking people for money meant that I was terrible at promoting it. But yeah, I was doing prints, like cartoon prints, unframed and framed. I was doing mugs, hats, shirts, totes, all the usual crap. But I did have a really good experience with Printful over a lot of other, I did try a few others, like Redbubble and stuff like that. But I found that the good thing with Printful is if I had extra things, physical things that I wanted to have in the store to be shipped out, I could warehouse them. I think they're in South Carolina. And that was really helpful. And so I still use them for some things like mugs and stuff. Mugs are not great. It's a huge mistake, but I still do it. But so I think printful.com is probably the best at this point. Yeah,
that's good. Cassie?
Yeah, I've also used Printful, and I really like it. Something that I really like about it is that you can hook it up to your Etsy account if you're selling on Etsy or Store Envy or something. And then when somebody orders from that site, it automatically goes over to Printful, and then it fulfills it for you. So that's something you can do if you want to get a broader reach, and I've had success with that.
Yeah, no, I think I had a Redbubble account. I closed it, but the one thing I'm not huge on print on demand because of the profit margins. There's not a lot of so when it comes to books, I always say print on demand is a good place to start, but not a good place to stay. Right? I want to do those books on an offset run where I get a better print margin or profit margin. However, having said that, I did like having a print-on-demand account ready to go for this instance when I post something on social media and somebody says, "Oh, I would buy that on a T-shirt," and it bugs me so much because if those of us who do this kind of stuff and posting on social media, you know that the first person that says I'd buy that on a T-shirt is the first person to disappear the moment you say, "Here's my T-shirt," right?
Like a whisper in the wind, they're gone.
Yes,
yeah,
like a Dracula in front of a crucifix. But so I had a Redbubble account and I'm vindictive enough to do this, by the way. Within a minute of them posting that comment, I had it down to 5 minutes. I timed myself. Like the old man in A Christmas Story, I'd have my wife time me. I'd have that up in 5 minutes, shoot it back out, and I said, "It is on a T-shirt, now buy it."
Crickets.
Never worked, but it gave me that satisfaction. I'm a small, petty man.
I will say this, though, as a counter-argument to print on demand, which I've also tried, and I will say that the quality in our lifetime of print on demand is getting remarkably good for what it can produce, right? But sort of an odd thing that I have found in my own book publishing, because like Brad, I do offset, and oddly enough, the fancier I make my book and the more of a piece of art that someone is proud to hold, the better they sell, which is counterintuitive to so much of mass market publishing. People love the art object that has the gold foils and the unnecessary built-in ribbon bookmark and the French flaps and the flaps on top of the flaps. And
I love your French flaps.
I've asked you not to comment on my French flaps.
This is a family show, Brad.
We're trying to keep this family friendly. But anyway, but so oddly enough, so like Sean, I also do a sci-fi comic, and boy, science fiction readers will pay for an object of art that has all these bells and whistles in it. And so,
even though it's more expensive.
It retails for $55, but it's a beautiful physical object.
Yes.
And so anyway, that's just the counter-argument to print on demand. So I will jump us into our next question. This is probably best addressed to Jason, if you want to jump in on this one. So NCS asks, how can I best use Substack to publish or monetize my comic?
So comic is the operative word there. Substack, further to what you were saying before about niches being the thing, no big wide world is going to agree on you anymore. There's no sort of mass fame or ubiquity in the way that Garfield or Snoopy, or Peanuts, had. The better thing to do is to really niche down on the one thing you're really, really good at, and the one thing you do. And so, if you're doing a comic, be it autobiographical or be it, a sequential, like a series, I think the best things you can do to monetize it, as Sean mentioned, behind the scenes stuff is great. To paywall that is always really nice. If people are really obsessed with the actual front end and the story, they definitely, a lot of creators notice that people just want to know like the back end. Oh, how'd you come up with that? The character designs, the costume designs, the color schemes, all of it. By the way, I'd be terrified to share my Photoshop files. They're garbage. Just layers. It's a mess.
98 layers.
That's why you should.
I'd rather run naked through Copley Plaza.
You can offer that as an option. That can also be a great.
Then it would be my last Rubens, I guess. No, so I had a conversation with a lot of different artists, cartoonists and illustrators and comic artists who do use Substack and have come over from Patreon and Instagram and other platforms. And a lot of them are noticing that it's the kind of the Matt Inman theory of just give as much away for free as you can and I can stomach, and then don't be sheepish when you ask people for more, because the odds are they probably want it. They're probably willing to pay if they like the comic. And cadence is the other thing. I think Dave and Brad, you probably can speak to this better than I can in terms of comics, in terms of cadence. Yeah. But it is important, because if you have a regular cadence, just like a podcast, I think that's important too. Just make sure that if you say you're going to do something every Thursday or every 2 days, do it. Never skip a day.
I can't tell you how important consistency is.
Yeah.
Consistency is really a big part of this. It's like, I want my stuff to go out, especially to my subscribers, because those are the people that are paying my bills, right? Yeah. I want to make sure that's going out on the regular, and I can't stress that enough. When I see people who are struggling on this kind of subscription-based crowdfunding, like Substack or Patreon, et cetera, that's really the first thing that I see is a lack of consistency, right?
Yeah, and I should stress also that it's different for everyone. I mean, every day might be normal for some people, especially with comics. For a strip or for a comic book or a graphic novel, but sometimes once a week or once a month. I know graphic novelists who put out a full post once a month, and I'm like waiting all month to get the next chapter. Yes. It's actually really exciting to do that, to have that, knowing that they're working away on it. I think Tor Freeman is a really good example of that. Yeah. And the other thing is, we haven't spoken about this, and it pertains to drop shipping and print on demand and all that stuff, is the second order effects or income of when you ask, monetizing a Substack. Yeah. It's that once you have those subscribers, first of all, you have them, you can take them wherever you like, but if you sell something else, like I'm at the moment, I have a book that came out and I'm offering to sketch people's dogs in the book. It's a book about dogs. And I'm offering to sketch people's dogs in the book. And I put that offer out every Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And I get maybe a dozen, maybe a couple dozen back. And I'm charging for those through Square. Right. And that's extra income. I mean, that's the extra stuff that people don't really think about. They think, oh, you've got X amount of subscribers paying $6 per month. That means you must be making this. It's like, well, yes, and I'm also making the stuff that I ask them for. Like, hey, I'm doing I've got 5 spots for caricature commissions this month. I've got, I'm giving away some original art. I've got a sketchbook that I'm, there's all that extra stuff that you have to think about, that you have thousands of people subscribe to you, and they're subscribed to you on purpose. They opted in. So if you want to sell something to them,
that's right. That's why they're there, is because they like you. That's the hardest thing to explain to an artist. I tell right, because I do a lot of these kind of talks, and it's the hardest thing to get people to understand that your subscribers like you. There was one person that said, "Oh, I don't want to put more than one post out a month because I don't want to spam my backers." Right. And I'm like, you can't spam your fans. If you post once, they want to hear from you twice. If you post twice, they want to hear 3 times. They're your fans. It's such an imposter syndrome.
I was going to say imposter syndrome is the key phrase there, because it's amazing how it affects every artist we ever met. Like, I was watching a Miyazaki documentary recently, some of which are great, some of which are not so great. Some of those Miyazaki documentaries are kind of sad. But there was one where he was, I think at the time he was 81, and he's like, yeah, I really feel like in 10 years I'm going to be good. And you're like, God, even he has imposter syndrome. Like, come on, and so, but yeah, there's a hard. Go ahead, Sean. I can tell you wanted to jump in on that one.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to say, as far as there's also a flip side to that I found on Patreon. As far as I find there are a lot of creators who fall into a trap of feeling like, I need to keep putting stuff. I need to post, maybe send out 2 posts a week for Patreon to feel like my backers are getting value or getting something. And I have found sometimes the opposite to be true, that a lot of the times you're saying, you have fans who just want to support you. Yeah. I think a lot of those fans, sometimes if I post a question like, do you want to see more posts, or more frequent shorter posts, or one longer post, and they're fine either way. I think they just want to, and I think some of my posts, I'm not even sure if they're reading, but they just want to support me on it.
Right.
And sometimes I find if you're doing too many posts, then I think it gets to be a backlog and they kind of start to feel overwhelmed by that. Mm-hmm. So I think it is a fine balance, but it's also the sort of thing where it's they're just happy to support you. And if you do 2 posts a month even, sometimes that's great for them and they're totally happy with that. So if you're thinking about doing Patreon, don't feel like you need to necessarily be doing a lot of content.
Just building on that, I have an artist that I followed that recently posted that hey, you're going to see me go quiet for a month, but that is intentional. I need to go fallow to think about this next chapter that I'm writing before I jump into it. And I, as an artist, immediately recognized that, yep, you go for that. And everybody else that was a patron was like, yep, you take that month because no one wants a story broken just because it was rushed. No one wants a half-assed version of a thing just because they felt they had to post. People are surprisingly human about the situation. If you talk to them, like you had said before, just be honest about what. But anyway, so Cassidy, for you with Patreon, both as a subscriber or a supporter of the arts and as on the other end of things, what do you find in that strategies that work in terms of posting?
I would agree that it doesn't really matter if it's frequent or long or anything like that. I'm purely speaking from a subscriber point of view here. I love to follow the artist, and whatever they're going to post, I'm going to eat it up. And if you can post a longer one with concept art, I'm there. So Sean, you'll be seeing me on your Patreon. Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
How many people here as cartoonists are either using a subscriber-based crowdfunding like Patreon or Substack, or plan to be doing so soon? Show of hands. All right, fantastic. So I'm going to wrap up this topic before we go to the next one with this. And it's one of my passion statements, right? I'm passionate about this. when you're out there talking about your Patreon, be very careful about using the word support. And we've used it up on stage a lot. They support, because it is a supportive thing they're doing. When you're out on social media talking, though, I want you to really be careful about that word, because your reader is living paycheck to paycheck. They don't know how they're going to pay the water bill most likely this month, right? And now you come into their social media feed saying, hey, support me too. They don't want to support you, right? But that doesn't mean that they don't have the money for a subscription. If you pose your Patreon as this is a cheap indulgence, right? The old story about movie houses during the Great Depression, right? Your Patreon can be an inexpensive indulgence for that person. Now, how much more effective is that marketing than support me? That's just my last, and that's something when I see on social media all the time, it's like my Niagara Falls moment. Don't stop saying support. Pose this thing as a healthy, inexpensive indulgence, and you will get such
akin to the
better
marketing that Starbucks has for a $5 coffee, or why lipstick sales go up during a recession. It's that idea of a manageable thing that brings joy at a reasonable price. Yeah. Exactly. So let me pose a different kind of question for you, because we're talking about making comics and making a living from comics and all. And part of that is, as Brad always says, with crowdfunding, even though we're moving on from crowdfunding, first comes the crowd, then comes the funding, right? So we all have a certain amount of outreach. But here's a generalized question for you, and feel free to jump in, whichever panelist would like to jump in first, is social media declining? It's a very broad question. Jump in, Jason. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, a business built on advertising and eyeballs is always going to have the same arc. I think it was not Cory Doctorow.
I think it was Cory Doctorow. If you're about to say what I think you're about to say, yeah.
It's a family show, but can I say the word?
Yeah, say it, yeah.
Yes, I think we're all grown-ups.
Enshittification, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so every platform seems to have this arc to it, where it does start with the best of intentions and with the users in mind, until it actually starts to want to monetize and make money, and then you have to pay to boost posts, and then it tries to adapt to the zeitgeist, and Instagram all of a sudden starts preferring video content or Reels to try and compete with TikTok, and then you have 1 million followers, but you can only reach 400 of them when you have a book to promote. I have a lot of friends who have followers in literally the millions on social media. They've been building these fans for like years and years, and pouring hours every day into building these followerships. And there's no doubt that it was lucrative for them at a time. There was a time when it was a great and lucrative way to make a living as an influencer, as a creator. You could genuinely start to funnel a fraction of those people to your store, your Patreon, your Kickstarter, whatever it was. Now, I genuinely feel like there is this very toxic and very sort of frantic panic with social media. And I have friends who work at Meta and other companies who, it's very real. A lot of people are just getting so sick of being gamed. They know they're being gamed. Despite the sort of addictive nature of it, the casino slot machine nature of it, I think they want to take back their own attention and kind of pick and choose the things that they want to read, instead of just be, flooded with, puppy videos. Not that there's anything wrong with puppy videos. I'm just saying that there is a feeling right now that people are starting to want something different.
Yeah. So if that's the case, and do we all kind of agree that social media is, there's nobody up here going to take the opposite effect on
I will
that.
argue a small thing, that right now, for certain platforms, I personally like Blue Sky, is on the upward trend of the enshittification roller coaster. Yeah. And so I feel like I'm sort of getting in while the getting's good for the next 3 years. And then as it goes corporate, I will dive back out again like I did with Twitter.
Yeah.
And so I, in my own way as a creator, I try to game the system when they're in the pleasant part of their corporate world, when they're in the Google do no evil stage, before they start selling out
AI answers came in.
Selling AI to the government for the Defense Department, and then you're like, all right, well, now I'm out.
And I should say that the best platforms that tend to stand the test of time are things like that don't follow that model, that aren't trying to sell ads. And so something like Substack, the reason I actually sort of went pretty bullish on that is that it's subscription only. I mean, they make money if you make money. That's the whole model.
Right.
They do have venture capital funding, and they just raised $100 million. So, you kind of want to trust that they'll stay true to their sort of, founding ethics, and they won't become the next Instagram. Or,
Yeah, as Brad says every once in a while, though, there are no heroes in capitalism, and so we can't tie our identities as cartoonists to any one platform because eventually they'll fail us.
Yeah.
But the question is, that sort of builds on that, and again, feel free to chime in, whoever would like to chime in, but as social media might be declining, how are you maintaining your outreach in a long-term way?
So I participated in Art Fight this year in July. If you don't know what that is,
My kids are desperate for me to do this.
It's so fun.
And I know that makes me sound old, but my kids are desperate. So explain what that is.
Yeah, so it's a big internet art gifting event that happens in July. For the whole month of July, you put up a picture of your character, and then everyone gets separated into 2 teams, and everyone draws each other's characters, and at the end, there's a winner for clout, essentially, like just for
And
fun.
do you move up in tiers, like Final Four kind of style?
You can if you make a bunch, like you can get little badges.
Okay, yeah,
but
okay.
so with Art Fight, I noticed, this is my first year doing it, it's a very basic site. It's a very early 2000s HTML, CSS site. And I'm looking at all of these younger artists that are younger than me. I'm seeing them coming up, and they all have websites or like really cool, like early 2000s style HTML websites.
I love it.
And it seems to be coming up from what I can tell. And it made me very happy because I also only really just put my stock in Blue Sky. And now I'm learning how to code because of Art Fight.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me feel really good about the younger generation, because especially Dave and I doing this show, for the last 5 years or so, we would keep saying over and over, you need a website. You need a place that you can control, and you can own your work, and no one can tell you to put it down, and you need and everybody was like, sit down before you fall down, old man. I've got a Twitter. I got this all under lockdown. And we're like, no, that's great. You can use Twitter. You can use Facebook. You can use all of that, but you need a place when you eventually either find out that, one of those social media networks has gone down the tubes, or maybe you get kicked out for one reason or another. Yeah. You need a place you can go. So hearing that, and actually, like, one thing I did at the beginning of this year was brought back web rings. If there's anybody with gray in their beards like mine that remembers web rings, and we've actually brought back the concept of a web ring and are getting really good effects out of it. It's neat to see these old ways coming back and being reimagined.
And the younger generation seems very excited about that, by the way.
Because to Jason's point, though, they know they've been gamed, and they know they're being sold to constantly and algorithmically driven constantly, and they don't like it. And what's great is the advice that Brad and I have been giving about own and control your audience, own and control your art. Means that when you get them to a mailing list, you own that audience. When you get them to a website, you own that audience. When you get them to a social media, as Jason said, you're renting that audience. You're on sand, and that sand can be blown away quickly,
What are your thoughts?
Basically, you said it exactly with the mailing list. That's something that I still do at every single comic convention I go to. I still have the clipboard with the sign up for the mailing list. And it's very, very old school, but then that is a list of people who, again, as you've mentioned, these are people who opt in. They are people who are saying, I want to know more about your project. And that's a list that I control. And like for my Kickstarter, it's like most of the backers so far from the mailing list, because I can't tell who is seeing it anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And your email doesn't get lost in an algorithm.
Yes.
I love signing up for mailing lists because I know I'm going to see it.
Yeah. The open rate, if it's like 40%, can you imagine hitting 40% of your followers on social media? That'd be insane.
It's funny because I use this this program when someone joins me on Patreon or buys a book or buys an original art. I can turn on my camera on my phone and send them a 10-second video. It costs me nothing. It's so easy to do. Some people don't like doing it, but I do it. The company reached out to me and they're like, how do you have a 95% open rate? Because they're used to real estate agents sending these videos and stuff. And I was like, because these are self-selecting people who love my work, and I'm sending them a video, which, by the way, also cements me with them in terms of future purchases or books down the line. They're like, wow, that cartoonist sent me a quick video. That's delightful as heck.
Oh, yeah. And it's called Bonjoro, by the way, if you're interested. Bonjoro.
Yes,
it's a
spelled
great
incorrectly from the Italian, but Bonjoro. Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up today, we've got one final thought that we wanted to hear everybody's thoughts on, and that is this. Looking ahead, because right now we are really in a period of big change for comics, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you see yourself having to change in 5 years? How are you going to adapt in what happens 5 years from now? And what did I say that was funny?
Because where do you see yourself in 5 years is very much like the.
Oh, it's like it's an interview question, but it's also pertinent.
But it's very real. Like, what ideas do you have? We need them. Where are you? No, but honestly, what do you see changing in 5 years that you might have to adapt? Whether it's to AI, whether it's to book sales, whether it's to social media's decline, or bots online, or this or that. What do you see potentially you would have to change to in 5 years from now?
I feel like I did a New Yorker cartoon with Snapchat in a chair, and the interviewer was saying, "Where do you see yourself in 5 seconds?" And look where Snapchat. I mean, again, Snapchat, where there's some kids using it.
Yeah.
Sorry to call them kids. So I think in the next 5 years, and we are in a period of rapid and unprecedented change. There's no doubt about it. I know we say that every decade, but we truly are in a very, very real sense right now. I like to think that there is a world where people do migrate away from these algorithmically driven, monoliths, these big Googles and Metas, towards these smaller communities. What the internet started out as, GeoCities, like these little sites and web rings of people who all kind of have similar interests, and not in a toxic kind of Reddit thread. I mean, like in a real community sense, finding their people. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think if I can curate a community of people who like the things I like and like my work, I don't have to worry about pleasing the whole wide world and trying to be big and famous. I'd rather just play to feed whoever shows up to dinner, and I think that's the big sort of aim now is don't go for big fame and fortune. Dig in to niche and get your 1,000 true fans, and as you say, rising tide. Just always promote your fellow cartoonists and illustrators and people whose work you like. I do that at the end of my Substack. I have a people you might like section. Yeah. Because I like them, so I just share their stuff. And I think that's the way to the next 5 years, especially. I think. I don't know about 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sean, how about you? What do you see yourself having to change 5 years from now, or do differently? Perhaps is a better way to say it.
It's not a money-related thing, but it's more about my workflow, and I think doing more things digitally is actually, I think, something that I am starting to embrace more. I'm a crotchety old man at heart who doesn't embrace change very easily. So it's only been more recently that I've started working digitally as far as the penciling and inking stage and that sort of thing. Mostly with a freelance, because that's the stuff that usually necessitates the most revisions.
Yeah.
My own comic, I can let things slide and not have to revise it, even though I should. But I'll probably do that more. But you were mentioning the web ring, and I'm actually kind of curious and hopeful that does well, because I think there are certain things like webtoons where it's almost too many things on there, easy to get buried. But it'd be curious to see like something like a smaller curated, hub for like-minded.
That's the strength. That's the strength, because on webtoons, if you're not a certain type of comic, you're never going to be at the top. They've got a brand, right? Whereas if a bunch of people that are doing a superhero comedy comic got together for a web ring, just like back in the day when Cassidy was starting out, right? You could say, oh, if you like this, you're going to like that, and we just passed them on one to another to another.
And they know a human was recommending it, not an algorithm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's you're right. You're right. And I'm telling you, web rings are back, man. It's been a very good thing.
Cassidy, if you don't mind me prompting you, because you said something before the talk that flips what Sean was saying on its head, but they both are valid, which is that you see a world for original art taking precedence in the future.
I do, yeah. So that's so funny. My opinion is the opposite of with the rise of AI, and AI is only going to get more believable, unfortunately. And so right now I can look at a piece and say, well, that's AI. But going more analog, maybe I used to do a lot of watercolor portraits and everything. Going back to that, I think I'll never stop doing digital for my comics, I think, but having a more analog artwork to share and to show people, just to be like, well, this one's real. Like there's no way this is AI.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife's in TV, and she was saying just the other day, she's never used AI and won't use AI, but she's like, I'm already seeing it coming in on the writing, I'm already seeing it on establishing shots and exterior shots, and terrifyingly, already actors are being replaced by AI using their scanned image. But she goes, you know what's going to survive? Live theater. Live theaters are going to survive. And I was like, hot damn, you're right. So it's just an interesting thought experiment. But But anyway, so I want to give a huge thank you to the NCS and to all of you for coming out. And a huge thank you. Please give it up for Cassidy, Sean, and Jason.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Thank you also to our guests, Jason Chatfield, Sean Wong, and Cassidy Wasserman. That's, by the way, what a great name. Thank you so much, all of you, for being up. If you're interested in those folks that you just heard from, I'm going to be putting links to their comics and their projects in the show notes. Don't hesitate to go out and check those folks out. They're fantastic.
And with a huge thank you to the NCS audience, which we found really warm and delightful. Thanks to everybody for coming out, and thank you for listening at home.
And that means it's my turn to say you've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the co-host of the delightful new drawing show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped and the cartoonist of Sheldon Comics at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another one of the handsome co-hosts of a new drawing show at wrongwayshow.com.
And the ComicLab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net, and this episode was edited by the ever-wonderful Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love ComicLab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, where we are burning up the podcast charts.
And ComicLab is made possible by your support at patreon.com/ComicLab, so I will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/they had a bar in the library.
They did. They really did. If those two end up getting married, do you think that we both get invited to the wedding, and we can both like sit together and smile approvingly as they go through all their wedding reception
just
stuff?
The two, and listen, it's the toast mid-wedding, and I want to thank the two cartoonists that brought us together in the audio room, because they were so clueless with their own audio equipment.
We had lots of time together thanks to those two doofuses.
Their fecklessness brought us to some feckless us. So,
that's not where I thought you were going with that line.
I danced close up to the edge, Brad. I danced close up to the edge.